Here we go. Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Toni. So, Toni, welcome.
Thank you. Really excited to be here.
All right, Toni, you're welcome to the show. And can you please let everyone know what your full type is?
Yes, my type, I am an ESFP. The full obvious type would be double feminine, Se-Fi, consume, play, blast, sleep, number one.
Gotcha. And when you got your typing results back, what did you think and how did you feel?
I, yeah, I did not expect the Fi for some reason. I thought I was SCTE. I also thought I was blast last. I did think I was a number one. So I think the number one, the feminine sensory, those were, I always knew that. But the FI caught me by surprise. And I think the reason for that is because I'm sleep last. So a lot of my FI is connected to like my NIFI for within my sleep. I feel very disconnected from that. So even though I am FI savior, I'm double activated play. So a lot of the times I feel more TE than FI.
Right. No, that makes sense. Double activated TE, number one also. So a lot of that parts make sense. Kind of. We'll talk about that shortly because number one does activate sleep. So, and your
Mm.
sleep is double masculine. So that's kind of interesting also. But let's jump into your first animal first, which is consume. You have SEFI consume or SF consume. There's many different dimensions to that, but I want to hear first from your own perspective. How do you experience that SF consume of yours?
Yeah. So I think my SF consume, because I have feminine sensory, I think my SF consume is a bit more flowy. It's not as intense as people that I've seen that have masculine sensory and SF consume, but it's very much focused on lifestyle. I'm very into like health and wellness. Um, I care a lot about how things look aesthetically. Um, and also, yeah, a lot of what I consume is really just that. It's about health, wellness, pretty things. I think SF consume kind of makes people just a little bit shallow, not in a bad way, but in a way where like visual things matter. Especially because I have feminine sensory, so the visual really, really matters a lot.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. What about your play? Your play is double feminine, ST. So it's kind of
Mm.
like collaborative with the tribe in terms of getting things done physically or concretely. It is double feminine in the sense that it is more flexible in your situation. And but you are number one at the same time. So there's like a lot of contradictions in your type. So you're gonna be very friendly, but friends might not be real. Friendships might not be real. So I want to talk to you about that. So how do you feel about tribe collaborations and working with a tribe and being very friendly, but being a number one and friends being at the very bottom, like that contradiction there. Can you please share?
Yeah, I can say I've definitely always felt that dissonance from like a very young age because I feel my feminine TE, but I also feel my double masculine sleep and number one. So it always feels like this push and pull. But I will say I love working with other people. I love teamwork, brainstorming, anywhere where I have to like do things with other people is always so fun for me. And I realize that's actually something that I really crave in like professional environments. I want to make sure that I'm not always working like by myself. I want to like build things with other people. And I think with the feminine TE, it makes it easy for me to work with different kinds of people. Um, because even though I do have that masculine NI and I know what I want and I know how I want it, it's very easy for me to find a way for it to work for everybody so that everybody has a good experience. So it's also connected to the SF. I want everybody to always have a good experience working with me. So yeah, I will say when it comes to like professional settings, like the feminine TE is definitely a great thing. I think where it becomes difficult is like where I have to like set boundaries. And it's really hard because I want to be direct, but I don't know how to do that in a feminine TE way. So it's very this like roundabout way of asserting myself. So still working on that.
Right. And then what about the friends last aspect of things, where like as a number one, the friendship thing is going to be, put aside, in favor of boosting your image and your status. How do you feel about that contradiction, having double activated play, being very tribe driven, but then also focus on the self and also focus on the status as opposed to the genuine friendship?
Yeah. I think, yeah, the friends last thing is something I'm still trying to understand. I think for me, at least for my type, maybe it's because I'm double activated TE. It doesn't really feel like I'm working towards status or anything like that. It feels more like I'm focused on how do I become the best version of myself. And so with the, double activated play, it kind of creates a bit of a balance because it's easy for me to connect with people. So I feel like I have like a lot of acquaintances. So like where the friend last comes is there are a lot of acquaintances, but to me, it's almost like they're tiers to like friendship is this like very specific thing. And to get there, you have to go through like multiple tiers from like acquaintance to like you know, I don't even have names for it, but in my head, they're like, it's like a tiered system. Where it's like somebody I know, then an acquaintance, and then something else I don't have word for that's between acquaintance and friend. And then there's like a close friend, and that's like, you know, yeah. So yeah, so it doesn't to me, it feels more like I'm very focused on becoming the best version of myself. So because of that, I think sometimes I get lost in my own stuff, like my own inner world. And so spending time with friends, sometimes that does come last. Um, but I think with the people that I'm really close to, I think they're used to it. Like we've kind of like been in each other's lives for so long that they understand that I am there. It's more that it's maybe going to be like 4 months before we see each other. But when we're together, like it does feel like genuine friendship.
Oh, I see. So you do have genuine friendships. It's just that it's not as many people, just because of the tier thing. The tier thing that you were mentioning, I do resonate with it. I think that's FI that you're
Mm,
describing right
yeah.
there, because when I was in Canada like several years ago, we had an in-person meetup with OPS, and we got like everyone
Yeah.
that was officially typed in the city, and we had this discussion about the tier. Although we called it the FI trash bin, it sounds very offensive. So basically, we put people in categories, from like
Mm,
people that's in the trash bin, where people we absolutely do not like, all the way to people that we absolutely adore. And then there's definitely
mm,
the tiers that that we did have, like when you mentioned
yeah.
acquaintances, for me, it's like, yeah, there is definitely people who are acquaintances, and above that, there's like work friends, like they're your friends only at work.
Yes.
You'll never hang out with them
Yes.
outside of
Yeah.
work, you know.
Yeah.
Like they might invite you to come out, and you'll make excuses not to see them because
Mm,
they're just,
yeah.
yeah, they're just work friends, right? So
Mm.
um, yeah, and then you have like kind of friends, like maybe you'll see like once every,
Seasonal.
yeah, seasonal, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Then you have your like once a year friends,
Mm,
So yeah, I can definitely see that here when you were talking about that. I was like picturing it in my head. Um, all right, that's cool. That you talked about like tribe collaborations. I want to move on to the next animal now, which is your anti-blast. Uh, because you do have anti-blast activated, that makes you an infodom, and I can clearly hear that from you as we're talking, and even earlier when you first jumped into the Zoom call, is how well spoken you are. Like you are so
mm,
what do you call it? When you're talking, you are more precise, and you're able to concisely say the words, unlike the blast last who might be stammering into what they're
mm.
saying. I think that's why you didn't become blast last, is because you are well spoken, as David Chan calls it, you're not a mumblefuck. you know?
Oh, is that what they call it? That's so
Yeah, like
bad.
they call like maybe it was in the earlier days, but in their classes they
Yeah.
call like the blast last like mumble fucks. So
Oh my,
I know it sounds horrible, but that's one of the words that they
yeah.
use in class. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, what else would you call it
Mhm.
other than that? You know. So, how do you feel about that? You know, being like obsessed with the accuracy of information and being able to convey that to the other person that you're speaking to.
Yeah. You know, I didn't actually know what the difference between info dump was and energy dump for the longest time until I watched the Celine Dion class and I was like, okay, I get it now. I know that's not what I'm doing. And I think for me with info dump, I think how that manifests is, you know, the whole saying of information is power. I feel like my whole life has just been about that, like information is power. Like I want to know everything about the things that I care about. And I feel like the more I know, the closer I am to almost like finding the secrets to the universe or something. But I think that's also connected to having NI. So for me, with having NI and almost feeling like there is this abstract concept, this singular abstract concept that is almost like the answer to everything in the world, the information really matters to me. So it feels like every day of my life is trying to find information that gets me closer to finding that NI in a way.
Right, right. And we'll go into much detail about the NI because that's kind of like the not sure what's the right word to call it, but it's the thing that a lot of ESFPs end up having the most trouble with. You do have it masculine, so that's going to be a big advantage over ESFPs with feminine NI for sure. And a lot of ESFPs also type themselves as lead NF, and we'll talk about that also because of your last animal being double masculine NF, right? Um,
Yeah.
One thing I want to touch on before we move on to that last animal is the NT flavor of your blast. So you have NT blast, which is going to be the same as what David Shan has. And
Mm.
NT blast is essentially providing solutions to the tribe that you've organized over time. And because you do have that masculine NI, you will have something organized. I mean, that's my assumption. I don't, you tell me if you do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you've already prepared it and it's ready to go. And it like solves
Mhm.
a lot of problems that might be a little bit different, but similar enough that the solution would solve all of those. Can you share a little bit about what NT blast that you've had stored up and then given to people in the past when you've provided them with solutions?
Yes. It's actually so crazy. I sometimes feel bad about it, but I feel like whenever somebody has a problem, I usually have like 5 things in like my NI kit. These are the solutions. It doesn't matter what the problem is, these are the solutions. So usually things like I guess maybe because I'm sleep last, a lot to me about problem solving is connected to like spend time with yourself, get to understand yourself, find the root cause of what is bothering you, like your recurring emotional patterns. And so I think that's the advice I usually give to people. I'm trying to get away from that a little bit because I can see that it's more connected to my own demon functions and other people might be connected to something else. But with having NI, I feel like it always applies. Like finding the root cause of a problem is applicable no matter what the problem is. So for myself, especially ever since I got typed, I think I got typed last year in December. So ever since I got typed, I have been almost organizing these like NT tools for myself. And the NT tools for myself, because I have masculine NF sleep, are usually around NF, around like emotional processing tools, tools to help me like double observe. So it's basically like I come up with NT tools to help me with my demons. Um, I have always had trouble with like making decisions. So I have NT tools that I've developed for that as well. And I keep them in, I have this like journaling app and it has like templates. So I create all these different templates that are like my NT tools to help me troubleshoot different problems. So I've been building them up for like a year and now I have like a whole, you know, I have like so many of them. And I use them like every single day whenever I'm having like, you know, observer problems or you know, demon sleep issues.
Can you share what observer problems you have or have had in the past? You probably have tons because obviously you're an observer, but can you just name a few that like really comes to mind?
Oh my God, the trauma. It's actually so crazy to me because when I tell my observer problems to double observers, it's almost like I tell it to them, but you can see on their face that like, is that really your problem? But that's how I feel as well when they tell me about their decider problems. So for me, it's honestly every single day. Like even today, right? So we had this call. I thought 12 p.m. my time would be 8 a.m. your time. So I was literally actually so nervous, not because of like the interview or the conversation, but I was nervous because I kept thinking like I probably messed up the time, or Zoom is not gonna work, or my laptop is gonna crash, or the internet is gonna go down, or like a plane is just gonna fly across and it's gonna ruin the whole interview. And like it makes me so anxious. And when I say it doesn't sound like a real problem, but it honestly messes me up. Or like I think I really connect to like the problems that Dave talks about, like things with like even though I am lead sensory, I have so much trouble with sensory because I'm feminine SE. Um, so for example, like I once had like this really, really important presentation when I was in uni. It was like huge. It's basically like the it was like the final for the whole semester. And I had been prepping for it. I had worked so hard. And the day I was supposed to go to that presentation, I literally woke up 2 hours later. Like my alarm didn't go off because my phone wasn't charged. And honestly, it's like things like that that get me. And it's so annoying because it seems so simple, you know?
Did they let you do the presentation then? Or like were you screwed or
They did. They did. I think that's where femininity is really helpful. Mostly because femininity is like very movable. When you talk to other people, I think they can also sense that it's movable, or at least that's what I think. So they're more likely to want to work with you. So my facilitator did like give me a second chance, but I had to beg and give all the reasons and but yeah, it was a lot of observer moments.
it's funny with that as a double decider, you can wiggle yourself out a lot of problems, but just double deciding like
Yeah.
really hard, you know? So that's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also funny when you said like there was something you said earlier about when you're talking to deciders, how they don't take you seriously when you're telling them your observer problems. And but then vice versa also when they're telling you about their decider problems, you're like, that's not a problem, you know? So yeah, I totally
Yeah.
get that. There was something that you said earlier about the future that I found very fascinating. I had an interview with this guy. His name's Michael, and he's an ESFP jumper. I don't know if you've ever talked to him in the community or not, but
Mm,
he has masculine NI also. And one thing that we talked about during our interview was he said, you don't fuck with the future. That's what he said. And earlier when you were telling me about the plane is gonna crash during our interview or the Zoom is not gonna work, and like you're listing off all this observer problem that could happen, I was kind of I thought it was kind of funny because I have NE, and it was like the biggest difference between NE and NI, right? Because with people with NE
mm.
like me, um, I see multiple futures and multiple possibilities. And so there is a version of the future that is not pessimistic. While like I do notice with the NIs, it is quite pessimistic when you future
It's
project.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why the other guy said don't
Yeah.
he doesn't fuck with the future because the future is set. It's masculine NI, right? Well, for me with feminine any, it's like the future's not set. There's multiple futures. You could any one of them can happen. So, my question for you then, with that masculine NI is, do you feel like destiny is real? Because masculine NI, it feel the future is solid. Do you feel like you have a destiny in it, and it's a specific thing, and it's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like destiny is real. I feel like things are fated to some degree. I've always believed in like meant to be. So I remember when I was younger, I used to always say like everything happens for a reason. And that was like my main NI from like when I was a kid to like recently. I'm like, everything happens for a reason. Like I couldn't believe that anything is happening just by chance because there's an NI and it's masculine, you know? Um, so yeah, I think I always think something bad is going to happen. But I think at least recently what I'm realizing is most times when I think something bad is going to happen, it doesn't happen. So as like lead sensory, I'm trying to focus more on the sensory and be like, the probability that something bad is going to happen is very unlikely because the 100 times I've thought something bad is going to happen, it's only happened like 2 times. So, you know, statistically, it's probably not going to happen. So I think that's the thing that kind of helps me become a bit more calm. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I always have an idea that something is gonna go really, really wrong. Like every single time, especially if it's something that I care about. I'm like, something's gonna go really, really wrong.
That's cool though, that you can use your extrovert sensing to kind of talk yourself out of this like negative future possibility loop, of like that one bad thing happening. Like it's just enough to calm yourself down.
Yeah, yeah, because I think like with the swings, they're so extreme. It's almost like if one thing happens in the sensory, let's say for example this interview, if Zoom didn't work, like like I don't know, 20-year-old me would be like, yeah, that means this interview is gonna be a mess. Like this is a sign. It's a sign that this was not meant to be. It's gonna go horribly. But I've been through enough situations to tell like that usually doesn't happen. And it's more how I feel about it because again, I also have masculine FI. So how I feel about things is actually a greater determinant of what's gonna happen in the future, is what I found for me. Like if I believe something's gonna go well, it's gonna go well because I'm seeing only the good possibilities. If I think it's gonna go badly, all I see is the stuff that's not going well, and then it inevitably goes badly. So I think what I've found this year is that the more I use my saviors, because I'm always, anyways, doing my saviors, anyways, the more I use my saviors to help me understand my demons, or at least like do my demons, the easier things are for me. So instead of going all in on my demons, is what I try to do, I'm more trying to like balance it out. Because when I do my demons, I'm a bit, it's almost like I'm a child when it comes to my demons. Like I don't know how to do them. I'm very unsure. So when I try to do them, of course I mess it up. So I want my saviors to be like the adult that is sort of like guiding my demons and helping me understand my NI and navigate it, so that I'm not always having like observer moments every single day.
Yeah, no, that's so true, that how your demons can come across as a child,
Mhm.
especially when it's connected to that fourth function at the very bottom. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the order of the functions still matter. So I feel like for your type, it's almost like the anti-blast in some way might be even harder than the NF sleep. But because your NF blast or anti-blast, sorry, uses your third and fourth function.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
Let's jump into your last animal. This is the big one now. Um, Double masculine NF sleep. David Chan always talks about how the ESFPs for you guys, this animal is super deadly, especially for you because you're number one. So it's going to be extra activated. They call it like the David Goggins effect because David Goggins is an ESFP with a double masculine NF sleep. So you have like they say that all you guys that like the really friendly looking double feminine ESFPs, you have that like
Yeah.
David Goggins inside. You're gonna fuck things up. You're gonna fuck people up. You're gonna fuck things up, and no one can stop you. Essentially, you're unstoppable. You're relentless. So, I want to hear first your perspective from it, and we'll do a deep dive, okay, at the different aspects of that. How do you see your double masculine NF sleep, especially when it comes to your own recurring emotional patterns?
Yeah. Honestly, NF is like my favorite function. Probably because I am double activated ST. So the NF is like this magical thing that I'm working towards. Yeah, but my double masculine NF is where I feel like all my power lies. So that's why actually I'm so grateful that I found RPS because I didn't know I was sleep last. So I didn't know that I actually wasn't doing my NIFI. And I realized like my NIFI, like that David Goggins thing, like it's so real, I think. Like it really does feel like the NIFI is like a powerhouse. It's what drives the more I believe and like follow my path and like own myself with like everything that I am, the more I feel like I could literally do anything. Um, and I think before I used to focus more on like TE to make decisions, ironically, because I felt like I need to have logical reasons to do something. So they weren't always connected to my values or my path or what I wanted to do, which meant I couldn't be consistent. And every time I've done something that is more aligned with my NI path and like my FI values, I've stuck to it. Even as an EP, I've actually been consistent. I've had like discipline, which is kind of insane to me because I'm like seeking chaos everywhere I go. Um, but yeah, it is my favorite function. So as a sleep last though, I do avoid it. Um, Mostly because I don't know, it's almost like I connected to like quiet, and quiet unsettles me a little bit and makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But the more I've done it, the more I feel comfortable with it because I see results. The more so for example, like the past 2 years, I've really, really done a lot of like journaling to kind of try to understand my reoccurring patterns. And it has changed things for me. Like I feel like I don't have as many sort of like observer moments because I can kind of understand what's happening. It's almost like I can see myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can see myself almost as a third party, and that helps me see myself more objectively. So yeah, honestly, it's the most amazing thing to me. Out of all my functions, it's the one that I get the most excited about.
Yeah, no, for sure. A lot of the ESFPs I've interviewed actually type themselves as lead NF because of the double masculine NF inner world. And the thing is, I always say to you guys, like you are NF, like your inner world is NF, so you are NF. So
Yeah.
don't be fooled by the old Myers-Briggs label, like because
Yeah.
internally you are, especially you double masculine NF sleep, right? Although when you said that you become like a ghost, like a third party looking at yourself, it does feel more like that's more like SF consume because SF consume is that's when you become a ghost essentially and you're watching yourself, right?
Mm.
Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because SF consume or consume in general, that's external self-awareness. So that's when you go outside
Mm,
of your body and you can observe yourself from a third party. So it's more
mm.
like in your case, it could be like Toni the ghost is watching Toni and
Yeah.
like, okay, so this is what Toni did, and you have like your consume follow along story. So today I did this
Yeah.
and this, right? So, but sleep's a little
Mm.
bit different because instead of saying that, it's instead you're saying things like, I feel this, I am this.
Mm.
So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, but I think
Mhm.
you are using your saviors again to tap into your demons from the sound of things. Um,
Mm.
Dave and Shan, or Dave recently, he did a typing video. I don't know if you've seen it of Vanessa Lau. Have you seen that video?
Yes. Oh my God. That was like my favorite class. I've been watching actually a lot of her videos. And it's crazy, but I actually relate more to SCTE sleep class number ones more than I do, I think, other like like SEFI, ESFPs. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the number one thing that maybe makes me more attached to like tea and like getting things done. I'm not sure what it is, but I find that when they talk, I relate to them so much more than when I like watch SEFI lead ESFPs. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure either why you would feel that way, other than maybe you don't relate to the SET per se, but maybe you relate to the struggles of the successful SETs because you're number one, so you're going towards success also, and then you can see kind of like the struggles that they've had, and they're able to communicate it with ST clarity, because they are lead ST, right? And you are double activated ST, so it makes a lot of sense also, how you would relate to that. Yeah, I really like that class. Especially I'm gonna do my little ego flex here because I sent Dave that video that he used to type that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I
Okay.
because I yeah yeah because I saw that video when Vanessa released it, and I kind of watch her channel like in and out, like here and there. Especially because like she's in the same city that I live in Canada, so
Mhm.
so she's like one of the famous like local YouTubers, I guess you could say. And
Yeah.
so in that typing video that they did, they said that you guys, the double feminine ESFPs, they said this is not the exact word that Dave said, but like I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But he said that like you guys do have an unfair advantage compared to the other ESFPs because double masculine NF sleep, you can store your patterns. So you have the ability to store it while like your double masculine brothers and sisters, uh they will forget it, kind of like you forget like the time or like other observer problems that you might have, right? So can you share a little bit about like being able to store enough of that like patterns about yourself that you don't make the same mistakes again, or at least you don't make it often enough that it will mess up your life?
Yeah. That's actually really funny. I think so for me, it's there's this, do you know Thais Gibson?
I heard of the name, but I don't know. In
Okay.
Yeah.
She's like a psychologist. She has like a channel on YouTube. She has a whole community, and a lot of what she talks about is like limiting beliefs, right? So ever since I started watching her, I've been mapping my emotional patterns to different limiting beliefs. Which means anytime I feel, for example, frustrated, I'm like, why am I feeling frustrated? And usually it relates to the same limiting belief, which made me realize actually that there are like almost like only two or three things that get me upset in my whole life. It's never, so it's less about the sensory, it's more about the NI pattern. And so because of that, because I remember that pattern, it doesn't really matter what I'm going through. The solution is always the same because I'm just trying to almost optimize for that limiting belief and kind of get it to a more balanced place. So I think that's one of the things I love about NI. But I will say again, I think all types are like they're balanced in their own way. So for example, for me, being feminine sensory, I've always looked at masculine sensory and I'm like, damn, I would love to have that. Like the like honestly, even like being able to remember things that have happened to you in your life. I literally forget things that have happened to me in my life, and it's sort of part of why I make the same mistakes because I don't even remember that I've been through this before, you know. So yeah, I think it's more about like doing the best with what you have, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so when you said that, I have like three multiple things that like my NE latch into that I'm future projecting now. I want to ask you
Yeah.
questions now because I'm curious. The first thing I want to ask you is, you said there's only one or two things that really bothers you. Can you share what those one or two things are?
Yeah, so the limiting beliefs, actually, I've connected them to the types as well. So a lot of my limiting beliefs are connected to being a number one and being TE last and NI last. So for example, for having NI demon, I have a huge limiting belief about I am not in control, right? Because I can't access my NI control. So I will be going about my day. And let's say maybe, for example, I woke up late because my alarm didn't go off or something. And immediately, just because of that, like I have this thought of I am not in control. So the whole rest of the day, I'm actually acting as somebody who doesn't have control because that like subconscious belief is almost like controlling me. With my TE last, I have a lot of, I think, like insecurities around not being like good enough in the ST because I have feminine sensory, my TE is third, and I don't quite feel like I can ST with the best of the STs. You know, like I don't know how to troubleshoot in the ST. And the sensory always so overwhelming for me. So that's been like a huge subconscious belief for me. So I would always have this sort of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. But I think that's also related to being a number one, because I've seen other ESFPs that are like number twos or number fours, and it doesn't bother them as much. So that I am not good enough is something that I think like subconsciously has like been at the forefront of every emotional experience that I've had. Um, so because I see that now, and I can kind of see that my number one is almost trying to show me always that I'm not good enough so that I can try to be better always. I can see how it has caused me like a lot of harm. And so I don't give it as much attention anymore because, like I said, that thing of like seeing myself from the outside, I can kind of see myself and see myself as like, this is just a program. You don't have to believe it. And so when it does happen, I can find not reasons, but like sensory facts that show that I am actually good enough. So again, using my saviors to kind of help me with my demons.
And then you said earlier that you always have the same solution to the problems. Did you already share that same solution?
Yeah, so the solution with like not being good enough for me is around like growth mindset, right? And growth mindset, I feel like I have a couple of concepts to me that are the core of what I feel like life is about, at least for me. So one is like growth mindset, the other is around like radical self-acceptance and like self-compassion. I think those are like two of the most important things to me. So for me with growth mindset, it's more around like if I feel like I am not good enough at this thing, what can I do to get better at it? Also, maybe there's a reason I'm not good at it. Maybe I don't like it, so I don't put in as much effort. Or, I don't have the right mentor or teacher, or I'm not doing it in a way that works for me. And so then that kind of takes me away from making it personal because my masculine FI wants to latch onto like everything has to be an emotional thing, it's personal. Most times it's not personal. So yeah, having those like NI tools kind of helps me make things a bit more objective so I'm not always, having like an emotional crisis about everything that happens in my life.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. I think that radical self-acceptance is definitely a good NF concept that you're using for that. It sounds like you're also using double deciding to solve the problem also, like looking at self and
Yeah.
try. So I think that's like a huge benefit as a number one is being able to double decide still. It's like, oh, you're because if you were like a number one and you were a decider, oh my God, that is gonna be so crazy, right? But you're not,
Yeah.
you're a double decider. So you're like, you have enough that you're gonna be okay. Uh, so that's really interesting. And also because you're number one, your swing is number four. So, like basically the way you see yourself would swing between like, I'm the best, I'm the shit to like,
I am the worst. Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be super extreme and you might come across as bipolar, maybe not to other people, but like maybe to yourself. You're like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why am I like why this keeps happening,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
swing of like extreme like self-confidence, extreme like I am the worst bottom, Um
Oh my
can you
gosh.
can you share
Yes,
what
a
can you share
hundred
what that's like?
percent.
Can you share what that's like that when that happens to you, like the extreme swings between like I'm the best to like I'm the worst.
It honestly, like what you said is so accurate. It feels like being bipolar, and it feels almost like you're just not grounded ever. And I think because as well, I have double activated ST play, I can kind of see competence on a spectrum and it's objective, which means I know for sure I'm not messes with me. And so it's almost like feeling like, oh my God, I am doing great. I am amazing. I am the best. Radical self acceptance. Yay. And then something happens and then I'm like, oh my God, I am the worst. I am never gonna get better at this. Life sucks. I should just give up. And so it happens all the time. And it's almost like with being like sleep left as well. Oh my God, it's such a mess because you don't even have that like your FI like self-esteem grounded that you can use double deciding to get out of it, you know? Because my FI is very strong when it comes to consume. I know what I like, I know how I like it, like, and yeah, I can stand on that. But when it comes to like the FI self-esteem that's connected to like the sleep, it's very unsure, it's very new, it's like a little baby trying to like figure things out. So it just, yeah, it definitely feels like being bipolar 100%.
You describing this reminds me of my interview with Chinzia. She's an ENFP jumper #1. Have you seen that interview with her that I did?
Oh yeah. I did, she's the artist, right? Or photographer?
No, that's the she's that's Wendy. She's the ENFP FM #1. No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about the MF one. She's a jumper, NETE, but
Mhm.
she's the one that does powerlifting. And
Oh,
basically
okay.
she said something similar to what you said, except like in her own way. So you said that you look at the spectrum of competence because of the ST play, and then you realize like I am not the best. Like I can see it and it's objective, and you're not, and it's because it's double activated, you can clearly see it, right? So for her, she competes in powerlifting. I think it's
Mhm.
powerlifting or something like that. Um, and she is also aware like she's not the best at the powerlifting, so she competes in her lane where she
Yeah.
can be the best. But she did say something to me during that interview that I found fascinating, and I want to ask you that same question. I also asked Wendy this
Mhm.
question. So when I asked her, um, because like one of the fastest way to get better is to team up with a tribe. But she said that if
Mhm.
she would never work out with another girl because the girl could become better than her or could become skinnier than her or something, and she won't be able to handle
Yeah.
like if and she's because she's trouble about self. She loves to help the tribe still, even though she has demon friends. As long as you're not competing with her, she loves to help you, right? But then when I interviewed that other girl, the other woman, Wendy, she's also a #1, and I asked her the same question. She said, "I don't have a problem helping people because deep down inside, I know no one is at my level." That's what she said, right? Like very like #1. You know, I had them side by side actually when I did the explainer video on social type #1s. I don't know if you saw my
Mhm.
explainer video on that, but
I did, yeah.
yeah. So where are you in this thing? Because it's interesting because you're kind of I feel like you're in between those two ladies because one is tribe of self and the other one's self above tribe, but but she's double activated FI. You're single activated, right? So
Mhm.
um I'm curious because you're in between them. Where are you in this camp? Like if someone needs help but they're in direct competition with you, are you gonna help them or are you not gonna help them because you don't want to that them to overtake you?
Yeah. These are the type of questions that I'm like, how should I answer this? I mean, to be honest, it was to be completely frank, I do kind of understand the first lady, the one who is tribe above self. It's almost like if we are in the same field or arena, I don't mean this in a professional sense, I mean just in anything, if it's like this is my FI thing that I care about, I don't want you to be better than me in it. Or at least that's how I used to feel. These days I'm trying to like ground my self-esteem more on my NF. Like how authentic am I? How do I communicate and like always show up for my values and for my path, and how am I, like how growth mindset am I? So that helps. But I'm pretty sure even when I was younger, it's almost like, especially with having feminine TE, I'm extremely competitive, but you're not gonna know, like I am like having this like inner competition with you, but you're never gonna know that because I'm never gonna tell you I'm gonna seem like really nice. And it's not like I'm plotting. It's more just like my mind and my SCTE can't help but compare. like it can't help but compare like how good are you in relation to me? And my number one is like, is that a threat? You know? So yeah, that's what I was saying. Like I feel like I connect more to like DE people when like number one DEs as more than I do DI number ones. Because I really like that double activated DE to me, like it's just, yeah, it's a lot. It's so present all the time. And I think with being sleep less, that making me more extroverted, a lot of my world is within the extroverted world, which means like that's where a lot of my value has been found in the past. The more I focus on my sleep, the more that changes, and then I kind of feel like, yeah, there isn't really much competition because the competition is in the NF, and there's no way to objectively say you're better than me at my NF. Like you can't be more authentic than me at being me. So which means you can't, yeah, there's no comparison.
Yeah, no, that's a good point for sure. And then Dave did say that NF sleep is the easiest sleep animal there is. So you do have that
Yes.
advantage for sure.
Yeah.
I want to point out two examples that I was thinking of when you were describing competition from your own perspective. So the first one is Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he's an ENTJ, same functions as you, just different order. So, he'll still have NF sleep, right? I think he has NF sleep blast actually. Except he's play consume blast sleep, I think. But anyways, or play blast, I'm not sure. But anyways, so he used to train with all his competitors. And
Mm.
it's kind of like Dave's mindset, because like the second example I'm going to provide now ties directly to what Dave said during my interview with him recently. Because I was asking him, like, how do you and Shan feel about competition? Like other people taking the OPS stuff and turning it to their own,
Yeah.
YouTube channel or their own business or whatever, right? And then Dave said,
Mm.
keeps his enemies close, and then that's what he said, right? Well, while
Yeah.
Shan, while he said that Shan absolutely hates it, right? You know, and then when Dave said he keeps his enemies close, and they're not really enemies, but they kind of are, but not really. It's kind of like a weird, because he's the number two still, so kind of sees them as like collaborators as well as at the same time kind of like opponents. And I think it's because
Yeah.
number two, and I can relate to what he said, is because us number twos, we have friends second and flex third, right? So we can kind of do like the double observing or double deciding with that, like back and forth. So it sounds like that's what he's doing, with that, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
so my question to you then, knowing like all these examples I'm providing, Arnold Schwarzenegger collaborating or working out with his direct competitors, and then Dave keeping the
Yeah.
enemies close, but Shan is like, I hate you guys kind of deal, or ish, you know. Um, how do you feel about that? Like, okay, you've identified someone as your competition. They're also aware you are their competition, and then
Mm.
they directly challenge you. But it's no longer like a hidden thing. Not like, earlier you said you're plotting in your head. There's no plotting. It's out in the open. It's a direct challenge, but they're really friendly about it, but it's still a direct challenge. Like, how do you feel about that? Now it's like the person's now your frenemy, like, you know what I mean? Because they're kind of your friend. And like, if you look at like Arnold Schwarzenegger, his biggest rival in his life was a Sylvester Stallone, because they both make action movies, right? They're best friends now,
Yeah.
but like they used to be like more like they absolutely hated each other, right? Because they keep making like one upping each other's like Hollywood movies, right? Um, you know,
Yeah.
so there's always you're gonna have a rival, as a number one, right? And ironically for him, he's an ENTJ, and then his opponent, Sylvester Stallone, is an ISFP. So it's like in EJEIP, which is an even bigger rival. So for you, it's probably gonna be an IJ of some sort, like an INTJ, who's gonna be like your arch rival, right? And you guys are gonna be like um one upping each other. How do you feel about that? Like if someone goes up to you, my first part of the question is, someone goes up to you and directly challenge you, it's like, Tony, I'm taking you down. Does that actually make you feel good, like in some way, actually? Because it kind of like fires you up, or is that like, whoa, you're too aggressive, bitch, kind of like, like where do you stand in this situation?
Yeah, I think that would scare me. I feel like with being feminine TE, when people are so direct, it like always catches me off guard. I'm like, how do you say that? Also being the number one, because I think with number ones, being a number one, you're very careful about what you say because you're worried about how you are representing yourself and what you say, how it's going to like, because I would never tell somebody like I'm gonna take you down because it's almost like I'm showing them my weakness. So so if we're direct, I'm like, why are you showing me your cards? Like something is off about that. Um, I will say I do think I prefer silent competition because if they're going to declare that now I'm their opponent and we're in this, thing going on, I would rather they join my team because I want to keep them close. Otherwise it feels like too much of a threat that I don't know how to handle. So I would rather let's work on this together. But I don't think I want like to have competition out in the open like that. That's too much for me.
Oh, that's so interesting. There must be a masculine DE thing then. The direct open competition. Because I kind of will see that in, I don't know if you've watched basketball like NBA or something. Like you're probably aware of Michael Jordan, obviously. So
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's obviously a number one. There's no surprise to anybody. And one of the things that he said famously in his Netflix documentary was he always directly challenged people directly. And he said he
Yeah.
wants to piss off his competition so bad that they play their best, that they are their best. Because when he beats them, he said, he wants them to know that even at your best, you couldn't touch him. Like you were nothing to him. Like and he wants to damage you like psychologically, knowing that you like he provoked you to the point that you had to bring out your best and you were still not
Mm.
good enough, and it's so insane. um so yeah, so I guess you don't want to do that. But
Yeah, I really don't. I think I've heard Shan say this, like she says, I don't want to crush people. I feel the same way about it. It's more for me, I want to be the best. That changes what the best means to me changes depending on what season I am in my life. But I want to be the best and I want people to see that and admire it, but I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. Like, but then I also don't want them to be at my level. It feels so crazy saying that, but yeah, so it's like I don't want them to be at my level because it's almost like to me it feels like it's almost like this primitive thing. Primitive isn't the right word. Like what's the word where it's like it's more of like a physiological thing. Like it's like my body can sense when there is like danger, like a threat, like somebody else trying to be number one. And it feels like it almost overtakes my rational brain. So like I definitely that competition is always gonna be there. But yeah, I don't want them to like I don't want to damage their self-esteem. I just wanna, I just wanna feel like I am my best.
yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Jordan's an ESTP, you're an ESFP, Shanna's an ENTJ. So you guys, it's a difference between the FI and TI and the FE and the TE. So there's still gonna be that difference. And in my past interviews, when I have spoken to FIs and TIs, the thing that I did notice is yes, both TI and FI people can be competitive, but I noticed the TI people are more competitive than the FI people. In terms of like standing out from people, like the TI people seems to use competition to stand out, like to be like to be number one, while like the FI people, they want to be different. Being different is how they stand out. Do you relate with that sentiment where like how you want to stand out, how you want to flex is by being different, not so much about the competition thing.
Yeah. I until recently, like maybe the past 2 years, I feel like I used to compete in a more like I want to be the best and stand out. But again, also that's because I feel like for most of my life, I've lived out as like an SCTE person. I wasn't. Of course, I can definitely see how I've always been like FI savior, but because I have so much like of that play energy, yeah, it's almost like I want to be TE good, and I want to be the TE the best, like the ST best. But now, I've realized when people, especially people with FE, with like on the TI-FE axis, when somebody tells me like when I say something, for example, about myself, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard other people feel that way." I'm like, "No, I don't like that." Because with the FI want my feelings to be unique. Like I don't want to say something and then you say, "Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of other people feel that way as well." Like it's almost because I think FE is almost trying to make all feelings like equal or something, or um, relate them to other people's feelings as well. But with FI, I don't want that. And so that has helped me actually figure out that, yeah, I don't think I want to be the same. I want to protect my little FI.
I think maybe because the FE invalidates your emotions, which is not cool, you know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that, being an FI person myself. Um, all right. So I have a few more questions for you and we'll wrap up the interview, okay?
Mm.
The first comment, I just can't help but observe this. Like I've been talking to you for like an hour now, and I was thinking like your mannerism looks like Jessica Alba. I don't know if you've ever seen her video. You even look like her, like your face shape. Like when you giggle, like it's just exactly like her. And I don't know if that's my masculine sensory seeing that. Like you should watch our interview after this and watch her interview. Like and when
Yeah.
she's laughing, watch her face and
Mhm.
watch yourself during our interview when you're giggling. It's exactly the same. I'm not joking, you know. Um, so it's like
I wonder if that's your NE.
I don't know if it's my
Like
NE.
your NE picking up on like patterns.
You want to ask me about my NE? Is that what you're saying, or
No,
is
I was saying like you observing that. I wonder if that's your any picking up on patterns. Because I've noticed I think you're really good at that, like um seeing the S patterns in people, like yeah, like mannerisms and things like that and how people look and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, maybe it's that, or it could be my NF consume too. So it could be my NE and then my FI. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, because like I feel like with any FI, I'm gathering people's FIs. Does that make sense? Like I'm gathering people's like it's almost like any FE, but like I'm not gathering the FE. I'm gathering more like the FI. Like I'm gathering your FI. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm gathering your vibe is what I'm trying to say. The NF vibe, right?
Oh, oh, I
Yeah,
see, I see. Okay, that's so
yeah,
interesting. That's a
yeah.
really good skill.
So the NF vibe, when I talk to people, you have a certain vibe. It's like a flavor, like an ice cream or whatever, right? Like, and then when I talk to another person, I'm like, you have the same vibe as this person. You must be a similar type, you know? In your case, like even like everything about you, I'm like talking to you, I'm like, you're freaking Jessica Alba, except she's MF, you're FF, right? And she's a number two, you're number one, you know.
Mm.
So there's like the big difference. Um, but actually this is a good question for me to ask you then. Okay, so this might bother you or this might not. Okay, I don't know if it will. So
Okay.
don't panic because I know you're panicking now with the masculine
I'm
NI.
scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm purposely asking it slowly just to freak you out. Just kidding.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
no, so my question is, so a lot of number ones don't become number ones because they don't have the talent to become number one. Because the thing is, like the thing that Dave and Shan notice when they're typing video is a lot of people who are actually number ones, they're any of the four social types, one, two, three, and four. Because it depends who's talented. It's a combination of talent and hard work, right? Essentially,
Mhm.
right? So you could put all the hard work you want, but if you don't have the talent, you're not gonna be number one, you know? And then so they did that video of Big Ramy. I think he was also an ESFP also, but he was a number four and he was like the best at bodybuilding. But then he didn't really care about winning. Like even when he came in sixth place, he wanted to hug the other bodybuilders at the end because he's so friendly, and his coaches got mad at him. It's like, you're really good at this bodybuilding stuff. You should be striving for number one. What are you doing? Like, stop hugging the other competitors. Like, what's wrong with you? You know, and he did win, first place twice. With enough encouragement, right? So as a number one, how do you feel about that? Like, because earlier at the start of earlier in our interview, when you're talking about your swing not being good enough, right? And then using your TE
Yeah.
logic to tell yourself, it's like, hey, you know what? If I'm not winning, it's telling me something, right? Um, so this is like a two-part question then. The first part is, how do you feel about like not being the best just because you don't have enough talent for this one arena that you're competing in? And the second part of the question then is, are you able to pivot then to another arena where you can be the best and be able to distinguish that this is not the right place for me to compete in, because this is in here, I'm only second,
Yeah.
third, or fourth, but in this other place I can be the best. Can you just share a little bit about that from your own perspective?
Yeah. Um, wow, that's a lot. I think honestly that's like my biggest fear. It's been my biggest fear for as long as I can remember of like how like what if I do not reach my full potential? I assume a lot of probably most number ones feel that way. So for me, because I know that, that's why I try not to ground my goals or ideas of like what success is in the ST, because I know like even if I have all the talent in the world and I work as hard as um, I need to, there's still sometimes like external circumstances, like other things could happen, right? There's so many different factors that to me, it doesn't make sense to ground my ambitions in the ST. But the NF is very flexible, like, for example, if my goal is I want to be more growth mindset, even things like making a plan when I go to vacation is a success to me, and I feel good about myself. Like even all these little things start to feel like success. And so I feel good and I feel like I'm improving. And to me, that's what matters. So it doesn't matter if I'm like the best in my field and I have all these accolades. What matters to me is, do I feel like I am challenging myself, that I am trying to be more courageous, more vulnerable? Because again, vulnerability is a really hard thing for me as a number one. Um, like, am I trying to be a more balanced person? And so when I feel like I am, I feel successful. And so it kind of lessens the pressure from feeling like, oh, I might not be the best in the SD. And yeah, so the other part to that is what I've learned this year is, to me, being successful in something that I don't care about actually makes me feel bad about myself because it makes me feel inauthentic. Um, and yeah, it just makes me feel weird about praise because I don't want you to praise me about something that I'm successful at just because it's easy for me. Um, yeah, it just makes me feel like if it's so easy for me, then I'm not doing anything. Like, which is why I feel like I have a complicated relationship to talent. Like, if I'm really good at something because, I was like my skills completely align with that, then all I'm doing is just being myself. And so that doesn't feel like success. But if I am working on something that I feel like is very valuable to me and other people, and I feel like I'm challenging myself and I'm growing, especially growing in the NF, then I feel successful. So yeah, so I don't feel as scared about that anymore. Like, because I know I can grow in the NF, so success is more tangible to me, or accessible, I guess. Yeah, more accessible.
Oh, I see what you're doing. You are competing in terms of um building up your character. That's
Yes.
that's your arena, is your character. Like David Goggins, he wants to be the toughest person, right? That's a character trait,
Mm,
being tough, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So what is that trait that you're competing in, or that you're building up? Like, what is that character trait, would you say?
Yeah. So it's a couple. So the first is around authenticity. So I am FI savior, but I'm number one. And there's a way number one makes you less authentic, because to be number one, especially with feminine TE, you have to kind of be uh what's the word? Like you have to be easy to consume for other people as well. So it's almost like you dilute your FI so that it can be easier for other people and other people can like connect to it and find it pleasant and admirable. So for me, being able to go beyond that and just truly at all times try to be as authentic as I can be, that is success to me. Vulnerability, like being able to show things that I am insecure about or not good at, because that bothers my number one. My number one does not want me to talk about things I'm not good at. So when I do that, I really do feel like I'm growing, and so that feels like success to me. And then the final thing is around courage. Because I have demon NI, I have so many fears, like so many fears about, you know, what if I'm making the wrong decisions? What if it's not the right pathway for me? What if all of this is horrible and the world crashes and burns because I made this decision? So the more I can be courageous and own my decisions and where I'm at, um, the more I really feel like, yeah, it builds up my self-esteem. And so my self-esteem goes beyond what I'm accomplishing and more about like who I am as a person. Um, yeah, so I think those are like the main three character traits that are like really important to me and that are like the basis of like my self-esteem maybe.
Oh, okay, that's really cool. Actually, that's a very growth mindset path for you to take as a number one, because it is true that number ones are the least authentic of all the social types. So like the fact that you recognize that in yourself, and then you wanna, you know what? That's actually the one of the best goal for NF Sleep number one is to beat other number ones at being the most authentic. Because that is like, it's such a big irony. I was just thinking, wrapping my head around it. No one, no, like a lot of number ones are not doing this. They're trying to compete in a superficial way, right? But like being the most authentic number one, that is actually an amazing battle arena, you know, to compete in, you know, if anything. Have you consumed any materials by Brene Brown? Because she's like the vulnerability lady, right? She's all about vulnerability. Have you consumed any of her stuff?
Yes, she's the vulnerability queen. I've read a lot of her books. She's actually the one who actually helped me realize that I'm a number one. I kind of always knew because like especially when I was younger, I was extremely competitive. Um, and so she's the one who made me realize about how because I have FI, I keep so many things to myself, so many of my emotions, and that's how shame develops, you know. Things like I'm not good at, things that I'm insecure about, things that I feel like I've done that are bad. And so in those moments, the double deciding doesn't even help because it's almost like the number one trumps double deciding. So I've been trying to be more vulnerable in small ways as sort of like exposure, almost like exposure therapy. Like if I can do it about small things, like for example, saying I really love High School Musical, and a lot of people are gonna be like, "What? That's so cringy." Like just small, tiny things. It helps me realize like actually being vulnerable is great because actually you get to connect with people that are more aligned with your FI and your NI. You have more lasting relationships. You basically it's more like the narrowing down and being open actually helps my quality of life than keeping things inside and not being vulnerable. So yeah, I really love. I think vulnerability is such an important thing, really.
Yeah, no, 100%. I can relate to what you said too, especially when you were talking about not the High School Musical thing. I mean, but I get the concept of what you're trying to say in terms of like just leaking out some of your FI here and there, just to micro expose yourself. You
Yeah.
know, and then you get used to that feeling, and then you know you can do it more and more, and then it's not so bad anymore. Although for people with FE, they'll probably think it's like that's not vulnerable. The TI is vulnerable, you know, like the work is vulnerable. I'm like, what? Stop being weird.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
vulnerable, you know, like who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
All right, so I have last two more things to cover, and then we're done the interview. So the first one is what do you want people to know about you? This is your kind of platform now. Like, if there's something that you want people to know about you, and then you want to be vulnerable about, what is it? Like, what is it? Since you have this open platform now, only if you want to share.
Okay. That is a really hard question, actually. It goes back to the whole FI thing. Like, it's so hard for me to talk about my FI. Oh, which is crazy because I feel like demon FI people also have the same problem. So it's like, you can't win. Let's see, something that I would want people to know about me. I think maybe I could just use the platform to talk more about like number ones and demon friends. I feel like sometimes people see it in a very sort of like black and white way of like either you're number one, so you don't care about friendship, or you're number one, you don't have friends, which is, it's both are possible, but it's not, it's very, there's just a lot of different factors. So I think for me, the way I see being a number one is almost like all the social types are almost like needs that you have, right? So one could be maybe like growth, two could be I don't know, responsibility, getting a lot of things done, three could be specialization, four is of course like friendship. And it's almost like all those needs matter and they're important to you. But when you're demon friends, it's like it's going to take you a long time to get to the friends because there are other priorities, not because you don't care about it, but because you're almost obligated to first work on your growth, to work on your specialization before you get to the friends. So it's less of like not caring and more like there are a lot of other things to get through before you get there. But I think it matters. And I think actually number ones care a lot about friendship because it's almost like to them, they're weird about friends in the way fours are also weird about friends. I feel like twos, the way I've seen it, twos are very casual about friendship in the way like making friends is kind of like an easy thing, connecting with an easy thing. With number ones, it's almost like you're looking for the friend, like the most authentic friend, because you're not doing that, because you're not having like tons of friends and doing that on like a day-to-day basis. So it almost matters even more because you don't do it as much.
That's so funny. I think that as a number one, your best friend is gonna be your rival. Like, you need to have a rival then. That because the friend has to be worthy, worthy of that friendship. And the only person worthy of that friendship is your rival, the person that has beaten you, the person has kind of like you guys are taking turns, one-upping each other. And it almost feels that way as a number one. Um, yeah, and you're spot on. That was a good NT blast, by the way, that you just did. Um,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but I feel like yeah, because like I feel like the number twos, when you said they're more balanced with the friendship, it's true because like number fours, even if they're DI, they're a little bit more needy when it comes to people. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the number ones are more are really cold, right? So it's like the polar opposites. While like the twos, we have savior friends, right? But we're like slightly needy, but just slightly because we also have the DI activated, not DI, sorry, the flex activated. So we'll be a little bit needy, and then then the flex kicks in, and we're like, nope, we don't need people, like fuck the people. And it was like, no, we actually
Yeah.
like people. So it always goes back and forth, right? Like so it's kind of okay. And the number threes have the same thing where it's like I'm the best. It's like, wait, people are ignoring me. I better be friendly now. So it's like so they can also balance themselves. So yeah, so I can definitely see.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Last thing is do you have any question for me before we wrap up this interview? Do you have any final questions?
Yes. I'm just curious. About like, for example, one thing that is like I really been focused on lately is like understanding the masculines, right? So to me, masculine and double activated is almost like different. So I have double activated TE. So I do it more and people recognize me for it more. But my masculine is FI. So I can stand on my FI longer. So it's almost like the masculines have more I don't know, almost like more, not, I don't know if stamina is the right word. So I've been trying to kind of understand like what the differences are between like having double activated functions versus having masculine functions, as well as kind of what is the difference, for example, between somebody that is feminine NI and masculine, feminine NI savior, and then masculine SE demon, and then someone like me who's feminine SE savior and masculine NI demon. Because I've noticed that for the people in my lives that are NI savior and feminine NI, they actually their life path is more towards like they're trying to find the masculine SC. So they actually tend to do more SC than I do because what I'm doing all day, especially with having masculine sleep, is I'm always in my NI. So it almost becomes like over time they seem more SC than me, and I seem more NI than them in more of how I spend that time, but not like how I communicate. So I'm just interested in what patterns you've seen.
All right, that was several questions, but I'll address all
Yes.
of them.
Yeah.
I was like, this is several questions. It's all good. It's
Like
all good.
throwing, yeah.
Yeah, you threw like tons of questions at me. I'm like, what? Okay. First one, that masculines versus double activated. Okay, David did address this in my previous interview with him. So the double activated is you're using it more because those are your saviors. So the double activated is being used more than the double masculines. The double masculines, um, from my perspective, what double masculine does is it adds a gravitational pull to it. So you can't ignore it. And because you can't ignore it, even if you have it fourth, you're always gonna see it, which is really helpful for us too, because we both have double masculine fourth animal. So we have an unfair advantage. Because earlier in the interview, you said that it's balance. I'm like, I don't think it's balance at all. We have an unfair advantage. We both have double masculine fourth animal. We have access to something people don't normally have access to, until they're much older, right? So it's unfair. And then earlier in the interview, when you said it was balanced, I think it's balanced in a macro scale because there's environmental factors where like where you are in the current, like, let's say economical situation or cultural situation, that's going to impact your type, right? So depending on where you are, like let's say if you're living in a country that is more religiously oppressive, then your FI has no advantage. Like the FE people have an advantage. You know what I mean? Versus like if you live in a country where it's very liberal, then the people with FI might have an advantage over the FE people. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so it's in a more macro scale, in a sense where that's more even, and then your other question, what was your other question again? You asked me a second question after the double masculine and double activation.
My feminine sensor is trying to remember. I think I
Oh yeah,
asked
I
the wrong
remember
one.
now. I remember now. I remember. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. It's
Okay,
okay.
great.
So you were asking about you being feminine sensory savior and then demon end at the
Yes, yes,
bottom,
yes, yes,
but it's masculine versus
yes.
the other way around, right? Um,
Yeah.
okay. I'm trying to think how the best way to answer this. I think ultimately we all have fascination with our fourth function and we want to get to our fourth function. Like Dave wants to be a badass SE person in the end, like,
Yeah.
um, and and then you want to be like the wise guru, or not wise guru, but like you want to be a wise person, with a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
That's why you want to have access to your NI at the bottom, right? And also the FI
Mhm.
NI. I think ultimately you are still your first function. Like no one's gonna come up to you and be like, "Hey, Tony is an INFJ or INTJ." Like,
Yeah.
hell no. You're definitely an ESFP or like an ISFP. You're definitely lead SF. There's no one's gonna question that. Like you're not gonna be the NT nerd, right? You might have access. You do have access to it. You have a third, right? So you can be a nerd if you want, but it's not gonna be like the main thing, right? Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, so I think that's the best way to answer it. Like for me, I have masculine SI in the bottom, but guess what? People still see me for my NE. Like I'm the chaotic NE guy, picking up all these patterns, talking way too fast because any people talks way too fast. You know, but like I do have fascination with my SI. Like ultimately, you've seen several of my interviews. You know, I travel a lot. Like I'm in Brazil right now, as I'm talking to you right now. But like the next person I interview, I'm probably gonna be in a different country, right? You know, like so. I'm purposely doing that because like the older I get, the more I realize I'm starting to go towards the SI. Like I want to narrow down, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not finished gathering yet. You know, there's still something I have to gather before I can finish the SI. But my ultimate goal is SI. It is, I want to have a box. Okay, it sounds weird. Like what? Your goal is a box? Like that's the goal. The ENFPs, the ENTPs is the SI box. I'm like, yeah, it is. I want to have like my perfect home with all the stuff that I want in it, you know? Like it sounds weird, but like that's what it is, you know? Um and and for you it's your NI, you know? Like so um yeah, ultimately that's but it's almost similar in the sense that yours is NF sleep, mine's SF sleep. So what is the purpose of that ultimate home of mine that I want? Well, it's for the SF, like health, like SIFI, kind of like, have you seen those Brian Johnson typing video? That the
No, I don't think so.
Okay, he's the INTP jumper. He's trying to live forever. That's his goal. He's a number one. Also, his goal is to where he's competing is to be. He wants to be the person that lives the longest, right? And so he's measuring everything about his body, his organs, everything to make sure everything's at 18 years old, even though he's 46 or something, right? So when I see his stuff, I'm like, I want to do that. That's my goal, but like not in the TISI way, but in the FISI way. So I want to have a home that has everything for longevity, like a gym, like anything that is involved when it comes to like the perfect setup for making the healthiest food, the best sleep, like it's like that. So that's how I see it. It's like longevity also. Because that's how Dave described SIFI as like help routines that makes you feel good, because it's FI. Or else if it's SITI, it's like health routines that works, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Does that answer your
Oh,
question?
it does. It does. It answers both my question.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's really great. That's really great. Yeah, and I see that. I see that. Yeah, but thank you. This was really great. And I really love what you're doing, like your channel, because I feel like with the different types, there's so many different nuances that it's hard, at least for maybe this is from an SC perspective, but it's so much hard to understand it sometimes unless you see the types in action.
Yeah.
Like see them talk, see their like vibe, and so it's really great. Like now you have almost like a catalog of, I don't know how many videos you have so far of the different types, but it is so great and it brings a lot of value. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your compliment. And it's good because have you seen my interview with Maria, the ESFP consume play sleep
Yeah.
block for one? So you guys are only
Yes.
one point off, right? But you guys are completely different, like so different. Yeah.
Yes,
So
exactly. So that's the thing. So yeah, I met Maria as well. We talked and all of that. And the thing that
you met
kept like
you met in
it
person?
blew my mind. Online, no,
Okay, I'm
virtually,
like, what you met
virtually.
in person? I mean,
But
she's from Africa too, so that's all I was thinking.
yes. Oh, okay, yeah. Not yet, not yet. But yeah, the thing that really like surprised me is how different we are, even like vibe-wise. Like I cannot, she seems so different from me. I seem so different from her. And that's what I was saying. It's almost like the types that I feel the most, or like I feel like vibe-wise we seem the most similar to are actually not my type. So yeah, it's just there's so many nuances. It's fascinating.
Oh, okay. So you have to chat with the SETEs then, the play consume blast sleep ESFPs then.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sleep last ones, yeah, the SETE sleep last number ones, those ones I really get. Like I feel like we have the same struggles in a way. Because with the blast last ESFPs who are number ones, they're so grounded in their FI that I don't feel like we have the same struggles in a way. What they struggle with, I am doing kind of okay with. What I am, struggling with, they're doing pretty good in. So yeah, like I feel like having the sleep move around changes a lot.
Yeah, and also info and energy dom. Like you're gonna be more serious as an info dom person versus like an energy dom person who's gonna be more goofy. Even if they're number one, they're more goofy too. It's kind of like kind of interesting to see that. Wait, you're number one. You're supposed to look professional and be professional, but you're still being goofy, even though you're just because you're number one. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah.
And I think also being blast last helps. I feel like I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is accurate, but I feel like it helps them balance their number one a little bit because they have a lot of drive, but they're blast last, so they can kind of spend a bit more time in the like sleep, consume sleep. And so I feel like it helps. I'll check. I think I want to like check with other different kind of number ones and get a sense of if this is actually true. But I've always thought that like maybe if I was blast last, I would feel less controlled by the number one. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you'll have less problems with control as not having blast last. Because people can like that you're still an EP, you have the don't control me bro syndrome, like don't tell me what to do. But because you have
Yeah.
blast third, you could fight back, but the blast last can't fight back. That's why it's a bigger threat to them. It's not,
Mhm.
I have blast second, like I'm a freaking EP, but I have blast second. So like when people try to control me, I just like fight them back with control also. And then now it's like because I have in the savior state, right? Like the controlling the tribe because I have blast, right? So it's like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to control me? Nice try, like like so those guys they have less ammunition to fight back. Well, for us, we're gonna be okay. We'll get triggered still, but we'll fight back. But those guys they can't even fight back. It's hard, you know.
Wait, really? I actually thought because I still have a lot of problems with the like people trying to control me or like systems
Yeah.
because being sleep last, it's almost like I don't always know my boundaries, so I don't enforce them. So even though I have the capabilities to enforce them, I'm not always in tune with them. So yeah, it almost feels like being sleep last and being double activated play actually gets me more stuck and more controlled because I'm just kind of like going with whatever is going on.
But you're aware of what
Mm.
is controlling you. You're aware it's the system. You're aware that that's the problem, and you're kind of doing something small to kind of fix it. 'Cause you have NT
Mm.
plus, right? You can problem solve, right? If you are an
Mm.
ESFP, you have NT last. It's so hard to problem solve. You don't even have it activated, like until you're older. And then you'll like, I mean, this sounds absolutely horrible, and I don't mean to offend the ESFPs by my comment right now, but you'll probably get offended anyway. So, too bad, I guess. Um, if you have anti last, you're gonna come across as really dumb, right? Like no offense, like and like because you can't figure things out. Like it sounds horrible. Like I said, I'm not trying to offend the NT last ESFPs, but because you do have NT at the end, that problem solving power is missing, kind of. You know what I mean? So
Mm. I wonder if maybe you feel that way because you're a lead NT. Um, because I think with ESFPs that are blast last, actually to me they come across as very intelligent because they have the sleep, so they can kind of organize their inner world. So there's like a sort of like a wisdom there, and then they also have double activated consume. So even if they don't maybe know how to solve something on their own, they have a lot of like consume energy that they can find the solution from somewhere else. At least that's how I see it.
they'll find it eventually because they're consuming. They're not going to be like the IJ who are anti-last,
Mm,
who just are clueless because they're not gathering anything new, right? What
yeah.
I say though is it's way too slow. Okay, I made a video about it. I actually have an explainer video that I'm working on right now. It's like the superpower of NT. And it's not
Mm,
gonna be missing for you because you have it third. But if you don't have NT, things in your life are just way too slow. That's my opinion. Because when you have NT, you have something called the multiplier effect. Okay, and the
mm,
multiplier effect, with your FI, you have several things that you're passionate about, right? You know, but if you're only using ST, guess what? You're only achieving one of that FI at a time. But if you're using NT, you can address multiple FI things that you desire. at the same
Mhm.
time. I know it sounds kind of complicated, but um, you know, um, but that's what NT is. Like you can get to your goal significantly faster. Like there was a guy I was interviewing a while back. I think he was also an ESFP. Um, and he had a specific goal that he wanted. I forgot what it was. And then he said that there's no chance in hell I can do this because I don't have any experience and no one's gonna hire me for what I'm passionate about. So I have to do all this menial job that I don't want to do. And I'm like, my NT just like solved the problem right there. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do what you want to do? Of course you can. All you have to do is do it for free for someone. And then when they're hiring someone, they're gonna hire you because they don't want to go look for someone else. You've already worked for them for free. You already know how things work for them. So of course they're gonna hire you first. That's like a no-brainer for me
Yeah.
as a lead NT person. And the person's like, I didn't even think about that. He's like, what is that simple? I'm like, it is that simple, my friend. Like it's like, you know what I mean? That's what NT is. Like the solution comes really quickly, right? So you have a third, you can come up with a solution faster than the fourth one. I'm not saying the um, fourth NT blast last ESFPs are dumbasses. I'm just saying like it'll just take them longer to get to the answer. Well, than you would.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It is interesting. I feel like with number twos as well, you guys seem to know when it comes to like skills. I feel like you have less of that fear that holds people back from like getting new skills. Like I don't know, because I think with like number ones, you want to be perfect at the skill before you like present yourself doing it. Same with number threes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like for number fours, but I feel like for number twos, you kind of just know how to like hustle and like get the skill and try it out. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you learn faster. So I wonder if that's a factor as well.
I think it's a number two personally, and you have number two activated, so you can do this yourself, except that maybe you're gonna be a little bit slower in it because you have a focus on the image. So you don't want to look bad,
Mm.
right? With number twos,
Yeah.
you don't care if we look bad,
You don't care.
which actually helps. Which actually helps get
It's
us
such
there
a
faster.
superpower.
Yeah, we don't have that barrier, Um, because like Dave always says number twos and fours look like bums, right? And it's like we don't care for bums. But the thing with number twos, the difference with number four is number twos are very goal oriented, right? We do have a goal, right? And kind of like number ones, we'll do whatever it takes to get to the goal, even if it makes us look bad, because number ones won't want to look bad to get to the goal, right? So you have to
Yeah.
drive, like I'm gonna use my inner willpower and drive to reach the goal. Well, the number twos, we don't have as much willpower as you guys, not even close. It's third, right? We have it third. So we have it enough that we can use it maybe once a week at most. Like, you probably have it every day. Do you have it every day, by the way, the drive to succeed? Like, do you think about it every day? Like the drive to
I Yeah, I think I do think about it every day, but I find that there are some seasons where it feels like a slump, like I, yeah, I can't get myself to connect to my motivation. But I think for me, that's when I'm not connected to my FI. So if I'm doing something that where my FI is not connected, I kind of lose my number one drive a little bit
what
because I don't care.
what percentage would you give yourself in terms of like drive?
Hmm.
Like, do you have drive 70% of the time, 80% of the time, 60% of the time? Like, what percentage would you give yourself?
I think maybe like 80.
80?
Um, yeah, maybe like 80. Like the more, also it's like the more I do things that are connected to my drive, the more I have more drive. Because it's almost like I'm getting closer to my goal. So now I'm like umping up the drive because I want to get myself to the finish line. Um, so the less I do it, the more I kind of forget about it. And then I get comfortable because I think SF is also, at least for me, is also around like comfort and like kind of creating that comfortable life for yourself, very much focused on like lifestyle. So it is easy for me to kind of get comfortable in my SF um, if I'm not continually making sure that my habits align with where I want to get to.
Gotcha. I think for you, when you said you have 80% drive, I feel like the 20%, the slack is picked up by the number two, because number twos, we feel like one of the reasons why number twos do become successful also, and oftentimes become in a number one role also, is because of that generalist, like broad responsibility. So even if we don't feel like working and we're not driven by competition, we feel like it's the right thing to do. It's a responsible thing to do, to do the right thing, the right work, to get to reach the goal. So I feel like because you have drive and a broad responsibility activated, the 20% where like you don't have any drive left, you will use the responsibility coin instead, where we're like, I don't feel like doing this, but it's the right thing to do. And I'm gonna do it anyways, even I have no willpower today, no drive today. That's why number ones are so successful, is because they have two tools to use to get ahead. For number twos, we have friends that slows us down. No offense, like we get distracted by the friends, right? Which is good because we have genuine friendships, right? So when we get to the finish line, we're like, oh, we still have friends that celebrates with us, right? Well, number ones, you might get to the finish line and it's like crickets, right? It's like, huh? No one cares, which is so sad, right? You know, it's like, oh, I have the gold medal.
Wait,
I have the championship. I'm number one. I have the recognition. I have the plaque. I have the statue. No one cares. No one's celebrating with me.
yeah. Do you when you say like responsibility, this has been always so like fascinating to me for number twos. Is it responsibility to others? Is it responsibility to like, I don't know, the universe and the value bringing to the world? Like what is that? Who do you feel accountable to? Because with number ones, I think you're accountable to yourself. Like how do I become the best version for myself of myself? For number threes, I feel like it's also how do I become the best, maybe like in my field, and there's like an objective way to measure that. So number twos, I don't think I quite understand that. Like, what is motivating you? How do you get so much done? How do you? Because the number twos I see, I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that. I know I have responsibility second, but like number two, it's like they have so much energy to get things done, and also they have a lot of friends who are also within that so I guess it's almost like connections. So they can also get things done faster because they know the right people, especially if they're ST and number two.
Yeah.
So, but I still don't kind of get what the motivation is.
Okay, I can probably sum it up in um comparing number one, number two. Okay. Number one
Okay.
is I'm the best. Number two
Mm-hmm.
is we're the best. Does that make sense?
Mm,
So
interesting.
Dana White, the UFC president, MMA, I don't know if you've
Mm,
seen him, but his goal is to build the best mixed martial arts sports in the world. And he said, we, the UFC, we are the best. He's not saying I am Dana White, I am the best president of this organization. He said, no, we are the best organization. So together, collectively as a tribe, the number two's motivation is together we become the top as a team. As a team,
mm,
we are the
I
best team.
see.
I'm not the best player. We are the best team. And that the motivation comes from us being the best. So for me, um, I'm building up my YouTube channel, personality trainer. I have my travel one too. I have a travel blog. I also work in fitness. I used to work as a recruiter too. So I'm picking up all the skill set, right? Um,
Yeah.
you know, and like, what's the ultimate goal? Well, my ultimate goal is to bring up my friends and family member, to the point where like we are all doing really well. And then my tribe, which is people, I don't see everyone. I know this sounds kind of assholish, but I don't see everyone in the personality space as my tribe. I see the people that is working on their fourth animal and their fourth function and their fourth social type as my tribe. Okay. So if you're not working on those, you're not my tribe. Sorry. I know. Sorry. Sorry, but not sorry. You know, uh, I made my channel the way it is.
Yeah.
Specific reason is because I want people to see what it looks like for people who are struggling with their fourth animal and what people are doing about it, so that
Mm,
people have a template, you have a map that you can use to work on your fourth animal. You don't have to be being the best at it, You just have to be 1% better at it. So if I recognize someone trying to be 1% better, that person is already in my tribe. Okay. If you're
Mm,
not trying, you're not. I'm sorry. I don't think highly
yeah.
of you. And yeah, as a number twos are more picky with friendship than number fours, right? Um, like I want to bring up people who's trying. That's my and that's not a very
Mm,
it's not like number ones where like you already need to have the accolades and stuff. I don't need the status. For me, um, if I see you're trying, that is when I have a very good opinion of you. If
mm,
you're trying, you're actually doing your best at your fourth
mm,
animal function or whatever. And sometimes I do interview someone, I'm like, holy shit, you are using your fourth animal. And I'm like so impressed. That's when I light up, right? So if you watch me do an interview and you see me light up all of a sudden, you probably it's like, oh, Kendrick recognizes something about this person. But if you don't see me lighting up, no offense, then it's probably like the person probably is like not working on their fourth animal, or Kendrick thinks they're BSing, you know. So so yeah, it's like if you see me light up, you know that's the person I'm interviewing. My NE has connected the dots that this person is actually working on their thing. If you don't see me light up, I don't see you working on your port function or animal. You know, like
yeah.
you're probably not trying. I might like you still, but I don't think your
Mm,
growth mindset. And
mm,
and I know like David Chan says a lot of people are growth mindset. I've interviewed enough people, and I don't think there's enough people that are growth mindset. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm not shitting on a tribe. I'm just saying I've just done enough interviews to see who's doing which. So so I hope that answers your question about number twos. So the drive for the number twos is it's almost like a DE, like we're trying to serve the tribe, but kind of serving ourselves too, because we do have flex activated. So we want to be still higher up. We want to be with the best. We don't need to be the best, but we want to be with the
mm,
best. So that's another
mm,
motivation. Like for me, that's one of my
yeah.
motivator is I have a number one friend in real life, and I want to bring him up, but he doesn't want anyone to bring him up because he's an ESFJ, he has TI at the bottom. So he's extremely
Mm,
personal with the work, right? And it's also a demon, right? Well, like my
yeah.
IST friend, he has TI in the top, so he feels way overconfident about his TI. Right? It's a little bit different from my other friend. So for me as a number two, um, I'm trying to do really well on my YouTube channel so I can crush my friend who's a number one,
Yeah.
so that
Oh my
he'll
God.
wake up and
Yeah.
he needs a tribe to get ahead, you know,
Mm,
because I do have actually my motivation is actually not a bad thing. It sounds bad that I want to crush him. I don't want to crush him because I want to crush him. I want to crush him because as a number one, I know your motivator to become better is competition. So if you
mm,
don't have the competition, you're not gonna thrive. So I'm giving him artificial competition to help him improve. And I'm actually genuine about it. I know it sounds I'm like, are you serious? He's like, no, I actually am. I actually care about my friend. So I'm purposely pissing him off so that he'll do better. And he is. He's becoming. He's actually like kicking it up the notch because he's like, oh, this fucking Kendrick guy's trying to like, trying to make me look bad, right? Like, So, um, and in a way it's also helping me because then I don't have any. My drive is like it kicks in once a week. I have
mm.
20% drive. You said 80-20, right? I have 20,
Yeah.
I had 20% or 40%. Like that's my drive. Okay, like honestly, it only kicks in once a week. It's horrible. It's annoying. I have a single activated FI like you, right? It only kicks in once a week. Okay, it does kick in. When it kicks in, I have to work like 12 hours. You know, um, yeah, because otherwise it's gone. So yeah.
Wow. I am convinced that like number two double deciders are the ultimate double deciders. Like I I don't know. I feel like because you have flex third, it makes you even more of a double decider because you're not too attached to your image, in the ways like number ones or number threes are. Um, so the way you're like when you're talking, it's so fascinating to me because I'm like, wow, that is such double deciding if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I mean, even my channel itself, like, people made fun of me so many times. They're like, your video quality is bad, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm still making videos. It's been like 5 years. I haven't given up. Like, because when I first started my channel, I planned ahead, okay? Like I knew as an EP, our biggest problem is discipline, okay? And consistency. Um, Someone in the Facebook groups made a chart for EPs versus IJs in terms of
Yes.
success. And like the people who reach the top are all EPs, okay? But the worst people are also the EPs. And everyone in the middle are IJs, right? So
Yeah.
EPs are more extreme. Okay. Like, you're either gonna be like killing it as an EP or you're gonna be, you know, doing really bad in life as an EP because you're drunk in your gathering, right? Um,
Mm.
and like I was thinking about that. I'm like, so what is the common denominator for the EPs that got to the high level? It's only like one, right? It's consistency, right? You didn't leap out, you continued. So in my head,
Mm.
the way I saw my channel was if I just kept going, my quality of my production is going to improve over time. So again, being a number two, not caring so much about the image at the front end, because I know later on it's going to improve. And I want to see my journey too from shit to when it comes to really polished, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and also like um, I know as an EP, if you want to beat other EPs, you only have to do one thing, is you need to out consistent them like the other EPs.
Yeah.
There's only one
Yeah.
thing you need to do, and I had that in the back of my head. So um like there's so many people that tried doing the interview stuff with OPS. How come I'm the only one that's still doing it? Like since the OPS thing started, it's because it's consistency. Like I plan this ahead. I'm like I will risk looking bad for the sake of consistency. So that's kind of like what I had right from the very beginning, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's like the growth mindset thing I was talking about, right? How because with number ones, right, you care so much about how you look and you kind of become very perfectionistic that you're scared to have something that is like 80-70% done, right? Like you want, it's almost like if I say I want to start a YouTube channel, already I'm thinking if it's not the best YouTube channel in the world, then I have failed, right?
Right.
So ironically, though, I think number ones are probably the most growth oriented and have a lot of drive. I feel like there's definitely a trap of like being very fixed mindset that you can't focus on like progress over, perfection. So I really, really admire that number two thing. I definitely think it's like it is such a skill, really.
Actually, speaking of that, have you heard of Tim Ferriss, the 4 Hour Work Week guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a number one INTJ, right? He's play last. He he did a series of videos in his YouTube channel where he purposely made himself look bad, and he looks so uncomfortable because he's a number one, right? Like
Yeah.
he purposely made himself look as weird as possible while making the video. And he actually addressed it. He said, like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable doing this, but I know this is like what I need to do for growth. And I'm like, yeah, you do look
Yeah.
weird. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, because you usually look professional, right? Like this Tim Ferriss guy. I'm like, why does he look like a monk?
Yeah.
What is he doing? And and then now I got it. I'm like, oh, he knows he's so image oriented that he has to make a video where he looks bad on purpose
Yeah.
just for growth mindset. And I'm like, that's so good. Like that's so good. So like
Mhm.
so that means for number ones, if you're gonna make a video or you're gonna present yourself, if you do look bad, that is the growth path, you know. Like and that's vulnerability. It's like one day you look like crap and one day you look polished. And if you can do both at the same time, like 60-40, then I feel like you're unstoppable because like people have seen you at your worst and you can handle it because then you're prepared, like you're and I prepared. Because if you don't do that, you don't go out to the public where you are like image wise looking bad, or you are at your worst, no preparation at all. You're not prepared. Someone has a weapon that they can use against you later on because they know that's have you seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
No. Sorry, I no.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Okay, just so one last thing and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. So in the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, you know, he's like rapping, he's talking about his history with rapping, right? So in the final rap battle, he he rap against himself. He double decided. He said, I know what you're gonna say about me. I'm a trailer trash, blah, blah, blah. I live with my mom. And the guy had nothing against him because he said everything that was bad about him. And then the guy that he was
Yeah.
rapping against, because Eminem was the number 3, right? The guy he's rapping, the guy that the archetype character, he was the number 1. He said everything about him that he was hiding behind his back pocket. And then he lost, you know, he lost the rap battle. So so I think that's actually a good. I'm glad we talked about this. Like, as a number
Yeah.
1, you will lose if you don't show your weakness, because
Yes.
they will use it against you.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Actually, for me, that's something that I've reflected on the past year. Like, they are, if I kind of like let go of my perfection a little bit, there's so many things I could have gotten better at. Because I think like with every new thing that you learn, there's always this awkward phase when where you kind of suck, you
Yeah.
know? And it's almost like the decision to keep going is actually what gets you to become good. Because it's so easy to just stop and be like, it's not for me. Like, it's not my NI destiny. Just because you're feeling that awkward thing of like, I'm not good at this. And understanding that actually as an EP now, it might actually take you like 5 years of consistency to actually be good at it, you
Right.
know? So that's why growth mindset is such a, like an important thing to me, because I have seen so much in my life how like the perfectionism is actually the only blocker to me in my life. Like it's literally the only thing. Everything else you can kind of like hustle through and try to figure out and problem solve and do play energy, find people to help you. But you have to first be vulnerable and accept that I'm not good at this and ask for help. And it's so hard. It feels like you're outing yourself, like you're giving leverage to other people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can see it for you guys 100%. Like that being a
Yeah.
vulnerable spot, and that being the choke point preventing you from growing. So for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tony, thanks for coming out and sharing more about yourself, the character growth that you're striving for, and yeah, and being this specific type that I haven't interviewed yet in the channel, so people can see what you guys are like. So thanks for being also the research subject, as you mentioned earlier, you know, by coming out and doing this interview.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, honestly. And I am very happy to be a research subject for science.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you so much. It was a great interview. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right, cheers. Bye.